Hello and welcome once again to English class standard 11th. The brainstorming part of the cherry tree will be doing it right now. To begin with, activity 1, find proof from the poem for the following. That is, you have to read the first sentence and see where in the poem that exact meaning of that sentence lies. The poet has mentioned different seasons. So has the poet mentioned different seasons in the poem? Yes. And which sentence shows that? And suddenly that summer near the end of May. Now here summer is mentioned. And later in the same stanza, and a monsoon blight shriveled the slender stem, means monsoon again is mentioned here. The poet observes next spring the plants further grow, again next season is mentioned. So in this way you have to go on finding out the proofs of whether the question statement is related to any basic answers in that particular statement. For second one is the poet's minute observation of the steady growth of the cherry tree. How did poet observe the cherry tree? Which sentences show that? Next is the color imagery in the poem. How many colors are mentioned? In what way they are mentioned? So all that you have to write. Answers are already given to you. You go through it. The struggle of the cherry tree for survival. Just go through the answer. Goats ate the leaves, the grass cutter scythe split it apart, and a monsoon blight. All these give you the struggle of the cherry tree for the survival. In this, the poet has expressed it in a perfect way. Activity 2, you have to give reason and for the consequences and the effects of what of the life of the cherry tree was threatened. Yes, the life of the cherry tree was threatened because it could the poet had forgotten about the cherry tree after he had put the seed into the ground. Nobody cared for it or watered it. Also the goat could have ate the tree, or and also the grass cutter could have cut the tree, but it managed to survive somehow, and it struggled for his life, and also it wanted the help to grow by having more sunlight and rain, and the cherry tree survived. Next is the cherry tree blossomed. Yes, the cherry tree had grown and reached a stage where it could bore flowers, it could blossom, and this is shown as a healthy full grown tree. Next activity is state whether the following statements are true or false, and if the statements are false you have to write the correct ones. So in this way in your exam paper also you have to write the sentence, and you have to write if the false statement is there you have to give the explanation of what is the correct answer. So like this you have to write. The cherry tree did not take long to grow. False. Opening line only shows that the tree took a long time to grow. 8 years have passed since I placed my cherry tree. So with this line we come to know that it took a lot of time to grow. The line tells us that the seed took almost a decade to grow into a tree. Birds and insects were benefited from the tree. True. The poet was exalted at the sight of the cherry tree, means was excited. Yes, true. The poem has an underlying message about the importance of tree. Yes, true. The poet repents, means he does not feel happy about planting the cherry tree. False. In the end, the poet and the poet express poem in the end of the poem the poet expresses his praise for the cherry tree. He is very happy and does not repent planting the seed. In activity 2 you have to discuss the reasons and the consequences and the effects of 2 points. So what are they? In the exam paper also you will be given the questions in such a way you have to write a complete explanation related to the question asked. The topic is the life of the cherry tree was threatened. Yes, the life of the cherry tree was threatened because the poet has forgotten about the seed that he has planted, and also nobody cared for it or watered it. Also the goats and the grass cutter could have cut the tree or eaten the tree, and also there was the sapling, it was in danger because there was no light or sunlight as the grass was growing around it. But anyhow, it survived and managed to grow. So the life of the cherry tree was threatened. The cherry blossomed. Second point. Yes, the cherry tree had blossomed because it had grown into a full grown tree and it could bear flowers and also it had cherries around it. Second part of activity 2, a small thought put in action led to a great achievement. Now this whole concept, this whole line shows us that if you plant a small seed, a whole new big grown tree you will get it after some years. So that is if you plant some small thought of planting a seed, and if you take action for that, you will be achieving great things. That is the meaning of this with the example of planting a tree. Opening line itself shows that from the beginning of the poem it has a great importance, and opening line shows that if you proceed with a thought and if you take action, you will be achieving good things. Next is in the end, the poet says that yes, I praised night and stars, means you should be happy for your deeds that you have done quite a few years back. Coming to activity 3, the cherry tree has inspired the poet to compose a poem. Such poems describing nature or the aspects of nature are called nature's poems. Find out some expressions from the poem that bring out the elements of beauty of nature, means which lines show that the poet has described the beauty of nature. These are the lines: three new shoots ripened and the jeweled in the sun, blossom small pink fragile, sleepiest breeze, blue sky, finches flew and fitted dappled green, peas in the ecstasy singing crickets. All these phrases, that is group of words, together show that the nature's beauty is described by the poet along with the colors, movements of birds and insects and also sounds in nature. All these things are taken together and they are described in words beautifully by the poet. This, as we are going with the book, the next line, that is next activity given, is only for your information, that is read the line pink fragile quick to fall. Notice the arrangement of the words in the line, so how they are arranged. So they move from healthy to delicate. This figure of speech is called a climax, where successive words, means after that what will happen, ultimately the last thing that will happen. So pink fragile quick to fall means slowly they will become, the flowers or the blossoms will become pink, then they will be becoming fragile, that is they will be almost in the stage of falling, and they will quickly fall after some time. So this is the climax, one after the other the thing will happen. The figure of the speech is called climax, where successive words are used, phrases are used, sentences are arranged in ascending order of importance, and here the cherry blossom turns pink, ripens and is ready to be picked up, that is ready to be picked from the tree. Next activity is about figures of speech. Find out the examples from the poem. Alliteration, antithesis, these sentences you have to find out, and also you have to give the explanation that why that figure of speech is applicable to that particular sentence. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or close connected words, means alliteration is occurrence of the same letter, again and again that letter will be coming in that sentence to the connected words. So let's see the first example. The grass cutter side split it apart, shriveled and slender stem. Here the sound of S is repeated. Next is antithesis. As you all know, antithesis means opposite. So it is a device that is used to opposite ideas are put together in the same sentence with to give the contrasting effect. Let's see in this sentence from the poem. It was very small, 5 months child, lost in the tall grass. So small and tall, These two words are used in the same sentence: very small 5 months child and tall grass, lost in the tall grass. So this gives the effect of antithesis. Explanation, you have to write it in the answer along with the sentence. Two opposite ideas, small and tall, are put together for effect. Personification. Personification is a figure of speech where human qualities are given to non-human objects. Now the answer here for this is personification. The sentence from the poem is: very small 5 months child upward thrust its arms. So here the plant sapling is represented to human child who is holding up his arms to be lifted up. He wants to grow big and he lifts his arms. The sapling is lifting its arms. Activity 5, Cherry Tree, is a narrative poem. Means it is the poet is narrating some incidents to us. Features that make a narrative poem are given below. Means how the poem becomes a narrative poem, that is given to us. Justify them with proper examples. Means which examples show that the poem is a narrative poem. The poem has a beginning, a middle and an end. Means the poem is given in sequence. The poem beginning begins with poet recalling how he planted the seed and forgot about it. He then narrates how the plant struggled through the perils and survived. Means through the difficulties and it survived. He watched it grow from a little sapling to a 6 feet tree bearing beautiful blossoms and even a jewel-like fruit. He turns to the present day when he is relaxing under a branch of a full-grown tree, admiring the creatures living on and off his cherry tree. Next is different places are mentioned. So what different places are mentioned by the poet? The poet speaks of going away from the place to Kashmir and returning back to that particular place where he was staying. At the end of the poem, the poet describes his surroundings while he lies under the cherry tree and enjoying the atmosphere around it. What are the characters referred to in this poem? There is a reference of a grass cutter. Several creatures like goat, birds and insects are mentioned in this poem. Next, the incidents are arranged in sequence. How the incidences are arranged in sequence. In the first stanza, it is mentioned that a little green cherry plant was small, a 5 months old child, and later it has 3 shoots growing upwards. Finally, it is a full grown tree with blossoms and fruits. So all these are the stages of the cherry tree. There is a dialogue between the poet and the reader or characters in the poem. So let's see what are they. The poet is telling the reader an incident about planting a seed, its subsequent development and miraculous survival, and lastly the way it succeeded in becoming the tree of his dreams. It is a time-bound poem. Yes, the poem is time-bound. Several times are given here and it shows that the poet begins with a recollection of how it was a seed, then it proceeds with the struggle to survive and its growth, and the final sense of the pride that poet feels is that when he lies under his own planted tree while admiring it as a part of a beautiful nature around him. Activity 5, compose 8 to 10 lines. Narrate an incident in your life without using any rhyming pattern. So these are the answers that I have given you are the sample answers that you have to keep in mind and you have to create your own answers. So this is the narration of an incident. As I walked down the school lane, I remembered the coin my grandfather gave me to buy a toffee or a top from my favorite corner shop. So without rhyming you are writing it and continuing the passage. Without rhyming you have to write it. Sadly found out only after losing my treasure, but another day my friend who had won my cat's eye lost it back to me. I was thrilled to be the master of the marble gems again. He begged me for the cat's eye and offered a coin in exchange. I didn't know if I wanted the cat's eye or a top more. So this is a particular incident which we can write in this way. 8 to 10 lines we can write, and that should be without rhyming pattern. Write an appreciation of the poem. This is a very common question or the activity that is being given in your lower classes. You have to consider all those points that are given below, like about the poem, poet, title, theme and all that. Your opinion should be the concluding part, and you have to complete the appreciation of the poem asked. Here's the appreciation of the poem The Cherry Tree, along with the points such as about the poem, poet, title, theme, summary, gist, poetic style, language. Go through that and see how the appreciation is done. Keep it as a sample so that you can do it for other poems also. These are the points in continuation to the appreciation of poem. Special features, message that we get from the poem. The poem has more than one message. It has the message to persist in the struggle and to achieve the goal. And also you should give importance to trees. And your opinion about the poem, that is this message of hope when one can only despair. There is a message to love trees and plants and grow greenery wherever we can. So it will inspire the students, and so you can grow more trees. So this is the ultimate message that you get from the cherry tree. Write the summary. This is the writing skill part, and you have to take a note that title is essential for writing a summary. Introductory paragraph you have to write, in which you will be writing about the poem, type of the poem, the nature of the poem and the tone of the poem. Then the main body, central idea or the small gist of the poem, and then lastly the conclusion. Conclusion will contain opinion and views. The example is given to you in the preceding slide. Go through it. As a part of summary writing, it is a part of writing skill. We have to write the summary of the poem, in which you have to consider the following points. You have to consider about title, where you can write the cherry tree. That title makes the reader wonder as to why the tree is important enough for the poet to write about it. The introduction paragraph should contain about the poem, the type and the nature and the tone of the poem. One line you can write it about it. The poem is a narrative one. It describes how the tree came into existence with just a careless burying of the seed. Next, third line is the main body, that is central idea, gist of the poem. The poet at the outset recalls that 8 years earlier he placed a seed in his garden, but he forgot about it. But that little seed took the root and sprouted, and it was nearly killed but survived, and the sun and the rain helped it to flourish, and so on you are going to write. And lastly, the closing lines, as he says, is admiring his own hard work, and he relaxes under the branches of the cherry tree, watching the creatures enjoying the tree that he has planted. Conclusion is, it is a fine example of the poem that tells a simple story in an easy verse. Write the poem Cherry Tree in the form of a story. In this question, you are going to write the poem in the form of a story. Here I have given you a sample of how to write the poem in the form of a story. You just go through it and you can understand how to write a poem in a form of a story. Write in 100 words what the cherry tree in the poem symbolizes, means why the poet has considered the cherry tree to write it as a poem, the topic as a poem. The cherry tree could be a symbol of a slow tentative beginning of a dream or an ambition. It is begun with a hope, perhaps forgotten afterwards. Means the dream was forgotten afterwards, but it was already started by sowing the seed. The dreamer may despair that even give it up. So he forgot that the dream could be forgotten, but a little effort, some nurturing and determination made the idea slowly take up the shape, and confidence returns and hope revives. And because of that, there is a confidence when the poet sees the shoot that is coming out from the seed after 8 years, and the hope is again revived, that is brought in, and some more care, sustained effort and time will see the dream become real, and finally one finds hope. So he makes a compound, and there the dream, he finds that his effort could bring a new hope. The person will use up all the resources and toil till the small idea is successful and gives a result. Means we can, if there is a hope, then only there, or he, the person can use all the resources, and he can take efforts so that the small idea that he has thought of will give success and give results. Thus one metamorphically tastes the sweet fruits after a long time and hard work. Means he can in imagination taste the sweet fruits, like how the poet is lying down under the tree, and he is imagining that this tree that he has planted is now helping others, helping other birds and creatures, and also he is enjoying that moment under the tree. The call of the soil, this is also a lesson for you, and in this lesson as well as in this poem, there is a feeling of growing trees, there is a feeling of relating to nature. You can go through this passage and you can find out the relations and the element of joy that we get after the seed that we have planted grows into a tree. Here's a project for you. You can write 5 poems of any 5 of the nature's poet, and also write the summary of that poem. The name of the poets is given to you. It is suggested names of the poets: Rabindranath Tagore, Sarojini Naidu, William Wordsworth, John Keats, Robert Frost, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Percy Bryce Shelley. So any of them you can select and write the poems and its summary also. This is a project for you. I hope that you have understood the poem The Cherry Tree. Thank you so much for watching. Meet you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.